The Metal Gear franchise has become a staple in gaming, guys, but I think that, like any franchise out there, we have seen peaks and valleys with this franchise. And, all other franchises have usually had at least one game that, doesn't do as well. There's always those valleys when there's all those different, peaks and such throughout the course of a video game franchise. And like I said, Metal Gear is no different. We've had all these great games in the Metal Gear series. We've also had some downfalls, one of those being most recently Metal Gear Survive, and I think a lot of people overall did not enjoy the game that much. Now, there are some that enjoyed it, but I think the overarching, community and fan base of Metal Gear did not really enjoy Survive. And I think, guys, many people are calling for this series to be done at this point, but I wanted to talk about Metal Gear Solid 6. This is a game that there's been some rumblings, some talk about. There's been people thinking that there will be a continuation of this franchise at some point or another in the future. I'm one of those people that really wants to see a continuation here, guys. I think it needs to be done in a way in which that we all feel good about, of course, but I think that this is a staple in gaming that deserves to continue and coexist with other games out there. So let's get into everything that we would like to see in Metal Gear Solid 6. You'll begin my opinions. I'd love to hear yours in the comment section down below. So let's get into it. So guys, Metal Gear Survive. This is a game that came out back in 2018. So we're coming up on, a couple of years here, right? It's past, couple of years, and, look, there's rumblings, there's talk that Metal Gear Solid 6 is in development, secretly in development. There's actually also been talk that Hideo Kojima may very well be coming back to actually work on Metal Gear Solid 6 as well as Silent Hills, which would be a very interesting ordeal if this were to be true. That leads me to the first thing I'd like to see. I would really want to see Hideo Kojima come back to this franchise one last time, kind of like the farewell of, Hideo Kojima, and maybe even conclude the franchise as a whole. Look, this has been a franchise that's gone on for a period of time, and I do think that it should continue, but if it's going to be done in a way like Survive, where there were just many different, things within it that we just didn't like as a fan base, I almost just think that they need to kind of put it to the wayside and start working on other and like new IPs and such. Because I don't want a franchise to be completely, ruined, or, all of my memories that I've had of the past Metal Gear games. And then with the new ones, they're just not nearly as good. So one thing I'd like to see is Hideo Kojima come in and do one last Metal Gear game, which honestly, guys, we honestly have no idea if that's going to happen. It very well may not happen. Obviously, he's working on Death Stranding. He's probably going to be working on a Death Stranding 2, potentially Silent Hills. And any other IPs that he may decide to work on. And so with that, guys, I would like to see him kind of pass the torch on to someone else. If, in fact, he does come back to do Metal Gear Solid 6, he kind of gives the torch to someone else. He picks the team to kind of work and move this series in the right direction. I think that would be a really good idea, because I feel like with Metal Gear Survive, just overall, the team over there, just a lot of them moved with Hideo Kojima when he left the company. And so I just think it's really important that happens moving into, Metal Gear, Solid 6. The next thing for me, guys, is, when you got this action-adventure game that kind of turned into more of like, obviously a survival game within Metal Gear Survive. But I would really like there to be like this semi-open world to this open world element to Metal Gear Solid 6. I do think, guys, there's got to be some changes. There has to be some new additions. There's got to be things that are, existing that have, come up in the past, that being like characters, enemies, environments, locations, and things of that nature. I think it's really important overall, guys, that there are changes, but there's also similarities to other Metal Gear games. Preferably not Survive, but what I'm getting at is this. Some characters you got to move on from at some point or another, or you don't take the helm as like one of these main characters and you kind of move on to some new characters, which is okay. But I do think that there needs to be, a nod to the past. There also needs to maybe be some of those existing characters that were in the series before Survive need to come back, need to be there, and kind of move the series forward in a major way. But also having new enemies, some new characters that come into the fray, some new locations, obviously, new places to explore and learn more about the lore, the story of Metal Gear. And I think also, having existing enemies, having existing locations, places that feel familiar are really important as well. That leads me to the next thing, guys, which I think is really, something that's going to be important moving into Metal Gear Solid 6 is having a dedicated multiplayer and co-op modes that you can play together with your friends, having multiplayer modes that get you coming back to the game over and over again. After you're done beating the campaign of Metal Gear Solid 6, having ways that you can come back, play with your friends, play by yourself, whatever it might be. Because at the end of the day, that really brings that engagement. That's one of my biggest, knocks on Death Stranding, which is Hideo Kojima's newest game, is look, after you beat the campaign, there's not a lot of reasons to come back to playing Death Stranding afterwards because, look, it's a great campaign. I really enjoyed it. I know there was a lot of people who had mixed feelings about Death Stranding. I enjoyed it a lot, but the problem is that after you beat the campaign, there's not many more reasons to come back afterwards, usually move on to another game. So I think it's really important that there are multiplayer modes, co-op modes that keep you coming back over and over again throughout the course of the history of that game. That's one of the most important things in my personal opinion. That leads me, guys, to the last thing, which is some free-to-play elements. I think that, a lot of, with Konami, it would be a real nod to the fan base and the community if they were to have some free-to-play elements to Metal Gear Solid 6. That being like maybe the multiplayer modes, maybe the co-op modes, maybe certain campaign missions or DLC or whatever it might be. Having free-to-play elements of Metal Gear Solid 6 is going to bring everyone back to at least try it. And if they enjoy it a lot, then they'll stay, right? And because I think a lot of people left the community after Metal Gear Survive. And so this would help bring people back, lure people back to at least try it. And if it's done well and right, very well may be able to really regain the trust and excitement of previous fans of the franchise. So free-to-play elements, guys, preferably like the multiplayer elements, which is what most people are going to be playing, after the campaign is done. But even some co-op stuff, whether it's, campaign missions or DLC and things of that nature, could really do well if they were to make those free to play. But with that, guys, those are the things that I would like to see in Metal Gear Solid 6. What do you guys want to see? Let me know in the comment section down below. And for more Metal Gear Solid 6 content and videos, stay here with Zero TV.